Okay, so now we're here for part 3, which is factoring trinomials, where the lead coefficient is greater than 1. The lead coefficient is that first number that's in front of x squared. The lead coefficient is the a value. It's whatever number is in front of x squared. So what's going to happen here, we're going to add a little piece to this. When it's just 1x squared plus bx plus c, what we were thinking is what multiplies to the constant, c, and adds up to the middle coefficient, b. That was our strategy. What's going to happen this time, though, because we also have this a value, our strategy is what multiplies to a times c and adds up to the middle number, b. This is what we're going to look for. So for example, in number 15, factor 3x squared plus 14x plus 8. I'm going to show you two methods here. One is called grouping and one is called the box method. There are actually a number of ways that you can factor these trinomials. The a value is 3, the b value is 14, and the c is 8. So what we need to do is figure out what multiplies to a times c. 3 times 8 is 24. So 24 is my number that I'm going to factor. And then what adds up to the b value, which is 14? Well, 24 again has a lot of factors. 2, 12, 3, 8, 4, 6. 2 plus 12, 2 and 12 is our answer. Okay? 2 times 12 is 24, 2 plus 12 is 14. Now here's what we're going to do. I cannot go straight to my answer like we did in the previous section, okay, where we find our values, our pairs, and then we immediately go to the parentheses. We're not going to be able to do that yet. And the reason is because of that lead coefficient. It's going to mess things up. What we are going to do, though, is we're going to rewrite this. We're going to write 3x squared. But instead of 14x, we're going to use these two. We're going to say, and you'll see why in a second, but I'm going to write this as plus 12x plus 2x, and then plus 8. So I'm going to write these are my middle number. They make up the middle number, 2x and 12x. Instead of 14, I'm going to write it like this. This is still 14x, I'm just breaking it apart. Now what we have here are 4 terms. Well, on the front of these notes, we learned that we can try to factor by grouping the terms. So 3x squared plus 12x, what's the common factor? Well, both of these can be divided by 3, and both of them have x. So I'm going to factor out of 3x, which leaves us with, that's just 1x, and this would become 4. So that's x plus 4. Now over here, both of these terms are divisible by 2. So let's factor a 2 out of the parentheses, and what we're left with is 1x plus 4. Now we have one more move. Notice that both expressions have the same factor. So we can factor that out. That's a common factor. And what we're left with, if we take out x plus 4, we still have 3x here, and then we still have positive 2. That is the answer. Now you'll notice I switched the 12x and the 2x. Would it have mattered if we didn't do that? If I had written 3x squared plus 2x plus 12x plus 8, the first pair we could have only factored out x, which would have left 3x plus 2. And the second pair, both of these are divisible by 4. Divide by 4, that's 3x plus 2. Look at what happens. Both of them have 3x plus 2, so I factor that out. What's left? X plus 4. It is the same answer. It's just written in a different order, but that's okay. So it is up to you. It's your choice. I put the 12 here because I know the 3 goes into 12. That's what I noticed, but it doesn't matter. Before I show you the box method, let's try 16. Okay, so let's factor by grouping. First thing we need to do is a times c. 8 times 7, I'm going to write it over here. 8 times 7 is 56. The middle number is negative 30. So what multiplies to 56 and adds up to negative 30? Well, let's see. 1 times 56, but that doesn't add up to negative 30. 2 times 28. 4 times 14, 7 times 8. But you may have already noticed, hey, 2 and 28 adds up to positive 30. So to make it negative 30, we could do negative, negative. And that fits because a negative times a negative is still a positive. Okay, so there's our combination. Now what we have to do, though, is rewrite the trinomial. So we just copy 8x squared. But we take this middle term, negative 30x, we write it minus 2x, minus 28x. There's the minus 30x, and we copy the constant positive 7. Now let's group. Both of these we can factor out a 2x. We can divide that out. If you do that division, you'll be left with 4x to the first. And this would just be minus 1. This whole thing reduces. So it's not 0, it's going to be a 1, it's minus 1. Now in the second pair, be careful, that is a negative 28. 7 goes into both of these, but I'm also going to think ahead. I need this to be a positive 4x. So to make this a positive 4x, I have to factor out a minus 7. So I'm going to divide by minus 7. That makes it 4x. 7 divided by negative 7 is minus 1. Notice that we have the same factor, another common factor. So we factor that out, and what's left is 2x minus 7. If you don't believe it, double distribute, multiply it out, and see if you end up with the original expression, and you will. Okay, so let me show you what the box method is. It is actually the same as grouping, it's just a different way to organize it. I'm going to go back to the example we did, 3x squared plus 14x plus 8. And we had to multiply to get 24. 3 times 8, we had to add to 14. And we knew that it was 2 and 12. Okay, we're not going to go back through that process. What we do, you can take a box. We'll make it a 2 by 2 square. The 3x squared, the quadratic term goes into the first square. The constant goes into the last square. The middle term, the 14x, gets split here, but not 7 and 7. It has to be these values. 7 and 7 won't work. So I could say, I'll say plus 12x plus 2x. Okay, now what you do from there, it's like a times table, except you're working backwards. Look at the first row. What can we factor out of both of these? We're going to pull that out here. So both of those can be divided by 3x. Now think of it as a times table. 3x times what gives you 3x squared? That's 1x. 3x times what gives you 12x? That would just be a 4. No x because we already have x here. If I did 3x times 4x, I'd get 12x squared, which I don't want. Now down here, 1x times what gives us 2x? It's positive 2. And the check, 2 times 4, is that equal to 8? Yes, it is. So the two factors are what I pulled out, 3x plus 2, and x plus 4. Some people like this because it's more visual than the grouping method. Some people just like to use grouping. So the cool thing is, it's your choice. Both of them work. For 17, let's go ahead and do box. Let's do a box. So we have to start with a times c, 7 times negative 12, which is actually negative 84. And then it has to add up to the b value, which is negative 8. Some of these you may want to use a calculator for, especially when coming up with your factor pairs, because it's important that you get all of your factor pairs. So 84, well, I know it's divisible by 1. Is it divisible by 2? Yes, because it's even. Okay, so we've got 1 times 84. We've got 2 times 42. Does 3 work? Is 84 divisible by 3? Yes. 3 and 28. Is 84 divisible by 4? Yeah, 21. Now, remember what we're trying to get though, it has to add up to -8 and it has to multiply to a negative, so it has to be a positive and a negative value. This doesn't give us -8. These are too far apart. 84 divided by 5, that's a decimal, well, or a fraction in this case. No, that doesn't work. 84 divided by 6 is 14. Okay, 6 and 14 work. Oh, look at that. There it is. 6 and 14. Now it's got to add up to -8, so it would be positive 6 and negative 14. That multiplies to negative 84. Okay, so we're going to make a box. 7x squared goes in the first top left. That's the quadratic term. The constant, that's a -12, goes in the bottom right. Now these two squares are going to be the positive 6x and the negative 14x. Don't forget that variable. It doesn't matter which one goes where. It's really your choice. Now all we've done, 6x and negative 14x, it's still negative 8x. We haven't changed anything. Take the top row. What can we factor out as 7x squared and positive 6x? In this case, both of them have an x. Now the 7 and 6, the only thing that comes out of that is 1. Okay, so we can't take out a number bigger than 1. So this is just 1x. 1x times what gives us 7x squared? Well, 1 times 7 is 7. X times x is x squared. 1x times something gives us 6x. We already have the x, so all we need is 6. 7x times what gives us negative 14x? 7 times negative 2. And then negative 2 times 6 is negative 12. And so now the factors are what we pulled out. One factor is x minus 2, and the other is 7x plus 6. Now what you can do here, go ahead and pause this. Go ahead and try a few of these yourself, and then start the video again and see if you agree. I'm going to do 18. And again, this can take a while to come up with your factors. Here's ABC. A times C is 9 times 25, which is 225. The middle, we have to add up to negative 30. Now, just to save some time, I know that 15 and 15 multiply to 225, and if I make them both negative, they still multiply to 225, but they add to negative 30. So I'm going to use that. Now you can use grouping or box. I'm going to group this one. So I'm going to rewrite 9x squared. Both of these, the minus 30xy is minus 15xy. Don't forget, in the middle term, you also have the y. Minus 15xy. And then this is plus 25y squared. We copy that. Now if we're doing grouping, we look at the first pair. Now both of these are divisible by 3, and they both have an x. So if we divide out 3x, what we get is 3x. This would be minus 5. The x's reduce, so it's minus 5y. The second pair, now this is negative 15 and positive 25. Those are both divisible by 5, but I'm going to make it negative, and they both have a y. The reason we made this negative is when we divide by negative 5y, this becomes 3x, and this would be minus 5y. You know you're doing this right if these are now the same. Because if they are, then we can factor that out. That's a common factor, so 3x minus 5y. Now what's left, if we pull this factor out, we're left with 3x. And in this one, we pull it out, we're left with minus 5y. Notice that these are identical, so we can write this as parentheses 3x minus 5y squared. And that is the end of part 3.